Welcome to Gopher Basketball Weekly. Mike Grimm and Justin Gaard with you. The head coach, Richard Pitino, as well. And postseason time is upon us. Of course, we're in March, and the Big Ten men's basketball tournament starts tomorrow. The Gophers will bat leadoff, taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. That game starts at 5:30. Spencer and I will take air at 5 o'clock here on the Gopher Radio Network. So certainly excitement in the air as Big Ten basketball tournament is ready to go. Head coach Richard Pitino joins us. And Coach, it's been a couple weeks in a row. We've had to start the show by asking you about the health of your team. So it seems that's probably the big question heading in terms of how the roster is shaking out, who might and might not be available. So I'll just lay it out there for you. What's it going to be looking like tomorrow night when the ball goes in the air?
I think it's going to look a lot like it's looked like, unfortunately. I don't think a whole lot has changed. I definitely don't think Gabe is ready. He told me yesterday I'm probably about 2 weeks away. I said, well, that's going to be a problem. Obviously, and then with Liam out, he's still playing on, or he tried to do some stuff on a lot of pain. I don't anticipate a whole lot of change. Booth is another one who's really struggling with that foot injury. He's trying to gut it out, and Brandon is as well. So is what it is. We're going to go, take advantage of the opportunity tomorrow. And, hopefully Brandon and Booth can give us something. That Brandon was really gutted it out last game. We didn't practice him yesterday, won't practice him today. And, just see if we can get him healthy tomorrow.
What happens to Marcus when you don't have a lot of other options? We've talked a lot about how they've tried to every team's been loading up on Marcus, even going back 2 months. And you'd said if other guys make shots and we make them pay, we win. Typically, when there's not that threat, it makes it really difficult. So how much more have they even keyed in on Marcus with all the stuff that you've been dealing with?
Yeah, you become easy to guard. We've tried to switch up a little bit of what we've done offensively. We were very low post heavy, trying to go into Liam as much as we could. Well, now we're trying to spread you out a little bit more. And, because Eric's not a low post threat, Sam can be a little bit, but still not quite ready just yet. So we've had to change everything. And Marcus is easy to guard if you don't have great movement. And we didn't have great movement at times. We were better in the second half versus Rutgers. So it's a problem. When you're dealt with this many injuries, it's a major problem. I think the defense has really suffered a lot more than the offense, to be quite honest with you. We were right there kind of in the upper echelon of the Big Ten in defense when we were healthy, and you're taking two of our best defenders off the roster. Major challenge. So we've really struggled with that more so than the offense. So everybody's got to step up, do a little bit better.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're going to get possessions and shots are going to go to the rim, assuming you don't, turn it over a million times or what have you. And you guys have been okay turnover-wise. So then it becomes, as it always does, comes down to shot making. And that has been certainly an issue, but it's been interesting, I think, and when you analyze it, because you've had over the past 5 or 6 games without, a full roster, you've had Trey Williams step up with a couple of career highs. You've had Isaiah Enan come in with a double-double. You've had Jamal Mashburn score 19 and 17 in a couple of those games, but really not all 3 of them or 4 of them have all made shots on the same day. Like Jamal was, I think, 0 for 7 to start the other day. And of course, Marcus was 0 for 10 to start the other day. Is that maybe, you can get all those guys hot on the same day? Maybe that's a way to make a run through this thing?
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, that would be nice. The one thing about those guys, no amount of missed shots can deter them from taking more shots. It's unbelievable. It does not matter. Jamal is, he's missed a lot of shots lately. Got to make sure he's still attacking. Isaiah's, he kind of, he's been a bit of an inconsistent shooter to begin with. I don't know if that's just going to change automatically. I think a big offseason for him will help him. And then Trey obviously is very, very confident. But what I want those guys to do is get to the basket and get to the foul line. You're not great shooters. I'm sorry. It's just, it is what it is. take great shots, but drive to the basket and get fouled. We got to be able to spread them out and get to the free throw line. Our first game versus Northwestern, we sent them to the free throw line way too much. The free throw line can be a huge benefit and game changer if you're living there. And, we've got to be able to do that.
What's it been like coaching Brandon this year? We've talked a little bit about him, and you mentioned maybe a month ago when everybody was healthy, he would be a good third option to really give you that big third option. He was obviously great against Rutgers. We know about his injuries. We've gotten to know him a little bit because he's done a lot of the media after the games, but probably not as well as we would have liked to, if everything was normal and there were fans and everything like that. But just on a coaching level, what's it been like to coach Brandon? Phenomenal
kid. Great attitude, great disposition. Just one of those kids you like to be around. What the hardest part when a pandemic hits and you have 6 new players is you're not able to work with them for 8 weeks over the summer. You're not able to really develop them in the fall because we got shut down and we had all types of issues. And, so that's where you're seeing some weirdness in college basketball due to the pandemic is when you have a bunch of new players. The teams that seem to be winning are the ones that have core guys back and they don't need to adjust to this new world. But Brandon has come in and coming from Western Michigan, he's been terrific. Now he's been dealing with that ankle injury, obviously only played 7-8 minutes for Penn State, really gutted it out last game. He's all heart, and he's a terrific kid. He's a great representative of, if like you said, if fans did come to the game and were able to interact with him, I think they'd be very proud of him.
And I mentioned Marcus, he started that last regular season home game, 0 for 10. And you mentioned getting the foul line. He has really taken that advice because, his 41-point night, he's got 20 points sandwiched in between those 20-plus points between those two 40-point nights. And I want to say he's like over 30 makes from the line in the last 3 games. So even if his shot's not falling, he's trying to get there. And then as it turns out, he makes the big clutch shot to send the game to overtime as well. But, Marcus is definitely taking your advice and trying to get to the foul stripe.
Yeah, none of them are great shooters. And that's okay. Like, you don't see Jimmy Butler taking 1,000,000 threes. He knows what his game is. And at some point, everybody in life needs to figure out what they are and what they're good at and do that. I always tell the guys, I say, when I play golf and I'm 230 away and, the caddy says to me, do you want to hit the 3-wood? I say, I suck at hitting the 3-wood. He says, well, don't hit the 3-wood. And it's at some point you have to recognize what you are, be smart, and play to your strengths. Marcus is really good at getting to the basket. Now he can make shots for sure, but put pressure on them, spread them out, get them in foul trouble. It's got to be a huge key for us with all these guys down.
When do you think Gaardsy will figure out, what he's good at and where his life's headed?
What's funny is it's very hard for young people because they're fed so much. It's all about confidence, right? And it is about confidence, but it's also knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at and not doing the things that you're not good at. You can be as confident as you want at something and still not be good at it. Just do what you're good at, and Gaardsy has a lot of talent, certainly, so he needs to play to those strengths.
Yeah. I think there's an age where if you don't figure it out, you're never going to figure it out. And I think we're there tragically,
for sure.
Unfortunately.
For sure.
No doubt about it. I was also going to ask about in that Rutgers game, just to go back. You guys are down 14 early. Really an incredible comeback. Carr hits a shot to send it to overtime. And a couple of plays there that you had an opportunity. I'm sure Eric would love to have that outlet back after he scooped up that loose ball. If he lobs it, it's easy for us to say. We're not in the heat of it, but if you lob it up there, it's probably a game-winning layup. But
it's Eric's fault.
But that's a tough one, right? You're 8 seconds away from probably winning that game.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think clearly when he passed it, he was like, I'll lob it up for sure. But they're giving a great effort. They really are. I was proud of them versus Rutgers. I thought they scratched and clawed. Rutgers needed that. They could have been out of the tournament if they lost that game. You know, so for our guys to endure those injuries, you know, and then to play like that, like that's all I can ask. You know, it really is. And even Eric, I mean, Eric really didn't come out of the second half until he fouled out. I mean, that's a guy who's dealt with a lot of major injuries and really was, you know, and again, I don't want to upset people, but Eric wasn't supposed to be our starting center. And Eric knew that. Even Jarvis was really our backup center and he opted out, you know, so everybody's roles are changing and increasing. But, you know, it's just a part of the game, unfortunately. You know, I mean, I don't tell too many people this because everyone gets offended easily, but you know, the Golden State Warriors won 52 games one year, then they won 15 the next. What changed? Injuries.
No question. No question. All right. Well, let's take our first break. Guardsy, we'll get some questions in here in this next segment as well. We want to remind you our show is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors. Onward for Business. They want to be on your team when you buy or sell a business. Onward for Business is the one-stop shop for buying or selling your business and for payroll, insurance, bookkeeping, and more. Onward, Sunbelt Business Advisors. This is Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino from Learfield, IMG College. Welcome back to Gopher Basketball Weekly with head coach Richard Pitino. Grimm and Gaard with you, along with the head coach. Sponsored by Sunbelt Business Advisors. Onward for Business. They want to be on your team and you buy or sell a business. Onward for Business is the one-stop shop for buying or selling your business and for payroll, insurance, bookkeeping, and more. Onward. Guardsy, go ahead.
You mentioned Eric Curry playing a lot of minutes in the second half. He said, you know, last week that this was going to be his last season. I'm curious, you know, what will you remember about coaching him? What do you hope Gopher fans remember about his time here?
I would say just had to deal with adversity. You know, I remember as a freshman, you know, that team, I think that was one of the best regular seasons in the history of Gopher basketball. And he was a major piece to it. And I was excited about him. I was excited about all those young guys. And much like kind of we've dealt with it as a program, we've dealt with a lot of injuries, and Eric has dealt with a lot of injuries, and it's disappointing for him because, you know, the thing about Eric has that you don't always see is, especially in just today's world, is loyalty. You know, he's a throwback in that regard. He never blames anybody else. He takes ownership. He never wanted to transfer. No, I mean, he wanted to graduate from the University of Minnesota. Says thank you. You know, he's appreciative. You know, and that's really fun to see. I mean, that's why you get into coaching. So he just dealt with adversity with class and with dignity, and you know, just kept working and didn't make it about himself. So you know, you just hate when a kid endures that. You know, it's next to impossible to go through all that and come back the same type of player. But he tried to do it. You know, I mean, he's out there gutting it out really just for the team. I mean, that's really what he's doing right now. And, you know, he's a great kid. He wants to get into coaching. You know, so
I wanted to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. He, you know, I've tried to talk him out of it. But you know what? I try to explain to him, coaching isn't really coaching, but, you know, we can explain that, you know, in a different time. But he wants to get into it. So he's got a good way with people. He's got a good mind for the game. And, you know, I do think he'd be a good asset for whatever staff he is able to join.
Do you think he's one of those guys that you'll try to hook him into, you know, a college program somewhere? Or do you think he'd like to go coach high school kids or junior high kids or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the normal route to take is, you know, maybe become a GA somewhere if you want to go college and, you know, do that for 2 years and get involved in a program and kind of go from there, or get into high school. You know, there's high school is great too. You know, I mean, I was a high school coach for 2 years and really enjoyed it. So that's up to him, you know, to figure out what to do. I mean, the biggest thing that, you know, he needs to know is that we'll do our very, very best to help him, you know, to put him in a great spot and see where it all goes from there.
Your dad, of course, has the big coaching tree. You'll have a coaching tree here. Because Hunt Conroy also, I think, wants to get into coaching as well, right?
He does. Yeah, he does. I mean, and he's another one where it's kind of in his blood. You know, Ed Conroy's in coaching. His uncle Duffy's in coaching. So he's another one where, you know, we got to find spots for these guys. You know, that's the cool part about being a head coach for 9 years is and you have guys who've graduated and then they need your help. And that's what's really, but I like that, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of their success off the court, and being able to place guys like Hunt and Eric or Andre Hollins or Jarvis Johnson, making sure that those guys are taken care of is important. And that's the most rewarding part of coaching. Coaching has ups and downs. It really does. There's things that you see this year. We were on target to have a great year, and all of a sudden all those injuries hit, and it can flip. But, I've talked about it before. You got to have an internal scoreboard that matters more than that external scoreboard. And, helping your former players is for sure top of the list.
Going back a year ago, you're playing Northwestern at the Big Ten tournament. You win that game. Next day, everything's canceled, right? I'm curious what you remember about this time of year last year. You're trying to play your way into an NCAA tournament berth. You're about to play Iowa when you get the word that everything's shut down. But what's it like now a year? We've talked about the pandemic a lot, but take us back to that time of the season, if you remember, if you recall, kind of what was going through your mind and all the things that happened.
I really thought if we won 2 more games, we'd be in the NCAA tournament. Now, I'm not trying to say that's easy by any means, but I always laugh when people are like, yeah, you didn't go to the tournament last year. I'm like, nobody went to the tournament last year. That was that altered everything. It altered the world, of course. But it's been a long year. It's a lot harder, I think, than people realize. Recruiting is really, really challenging. And that's something that I don't think people understand. It's going to rock our world and our profession for a while, because nobody's been recruiting for a year. It's not as normal to evaluate a high school kid with a mask on some security camera as it is in normal times. So people are going to make a lot of mistakes, unfortunately. You have that elephant in the room about the one-time transfer. I think every college program is really saving scholarships and waiting for that, because they don't know what their roster is going to look like. They don't know who's going to come available. So college basketball is because of the pandemic has drastically changed. College sports, I would say, has drastically changed. So you just try to, we've tried to sacrifice as much as we possibly can this year for the student athletes, but when you go into a year where student athletes are told they don't have to play and they get the year back, that creates unique challenges. So it hasn't been a normal year, but, I've said from day one, if you play the games, coaches are going to get evaluated regardless of what goes on. And certainly that's been the uniqueness of this year. So when that hit, I didn't think we'd be dealing with it a year later.
Right.
I did not think that. I thought, we'll be back to normal by June. It's just nothing. But it is what it is. So it's been, I will say, knock on wood, we've kept our guys safe. We've been able to play all those games, and that's been obviously a much bigger challenge than people realize.
Yeah, I can even recall at the time that happened, Spencer and I were in the elevator at the Bankers Life Fieldhouse getting ready to go set up for the game. And Dan Riesig, the communications guy at that time, gets the email that says we're canceled. And there's an Iowa assistant coach. He doesn't know us at all. He's in the elevator with us going down to the floor level for the game. And Dan's like, oh, it's over. Because remember the night before when really all hell broke loose, when the thing went with the NBA and Fred Hoiberg's team got, he was sick as
Who touched me in the hallway, by the way. He touched me.
Yeah, I was going to get to Hoiberg. Don't think I wasn't. Yeah, that was a come on, Freddie. Let's go, man. But
then at the end of the day, so the Iowa guy doesn't believe us at first. He gets off and he's starting to, because he's there before the team. I think he's scouting Michigan and Rutgers are like 10 minutes from starting, I want to say. But even then, there was still that feeling like, well, let's just put this on hold for a few days and the tournament will start next week. Like they're not going to cancel the tournament, the NCAA, the big dance. And a few days later, everything basically, is shut down. And here we are all this time.
Well, I remember we beat Northwestern, played pretty well. I think we had beaten Nebraska, Northwestern. We were getting a little bit of momentum, playing a little bit better. And I'm walking out of the locker room and this all hits. Like the idea a year ago of like, if I see you, I'm not going to shake your hand is insane. Like you would never think of that in a million years. Now it's become normal. Well, small hallway in Indianapolis and I see Fred and I don't realize he's sick. And he gives me like a little fist bump which I'm like, all right, not a big deal, I guess, whatever. And then I keep walking. Well, I see Andy Katz. Andy Katz does like a post-game interview. He's like, hey, you heard Hoiberg's sick? I'm like, oh my God. So then I go back to my room and I'm watching the game and I'm like, all right, I touched him. They're showing him on the thing and he's sick. I'm like, what's going on? So I got a text late that he tested negative for it, but there was just so much unknown. And I mean, it's just, it's rocked college sports. It's rocked our whole world, obviously. And it's been quite a challenge and very unique.
I was reading something about Rutgers because, a year ago, they're going to the tournament, their first one in forever, and they're all excited. And obviously they got shut down 10 minutes before the game, like Grimmer just said. Andy Katz apparently was going around the entire arena because he told Archie Fred was sick. He told the Big Ten people
telling everybody, if
sick.
You got a secret, don't tell Andy Katz.
I guess not. Yeah, I guess not. But so that was the funniest part.
No question. Crazy. It was crazy times because we're walking in just to get our gear. Like our headphones and my stuff and all that, and they're like getting us out of there. They're like yelling at us to get out of there. And our engineer's like, I got $50,000 worth of gear here. I got to take out of here. And they're like, nope, get out. You got to come back.
And then we had to stay. Remember, we couldn't get a flight back for a while, so we were kind of stranded in Indy. And it was somewhat of a nice day. I mean, it was like 50 degrees out. It was like, can you walk outside? Can you get fresh air? What's the deal? So I don't know. I mean, it's not normal by any means, but like I've said from day one, if you play the games, you're going to be evaluated that way. And but it's been a very, very unique experience that'll hopefully make everybody a little stronger, a little better.
So before we take the next break and get to the long contested two, a bit of breaking news here on Marcus Carr. He's been named second team All Big Ten by the coaches, by the media, and third team All Big Ten by the coaches in a vote. Not a huge surprise there. He's the third leading scorer in the Big Ten, and obviously, a go-to guy for the Golden Gophers. But tip of the cap to Marcus Carr, Coach.
That's great. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I mean, it's obviously this year, it's been the weirdest year ever because I mean, you tie a school record for ranked wins, like that's amazing. And then all the injuries hit and you lose 7 in a row. If we didn't get injured, Marcus would be, in my opinion, probably a first team guy. But it is what it is. I mean, it's not a coach making an excuse. I think Marcus is a terrific point guard. People get critical of him sometimes. Oh, he's over penetrated. Well, he's trying to make things happen, on an injury riddled team. So proud of him, happy for him. He's a terrific point guard and his future is very, very, very bright.
And one last thing on Marcus, because you mentioned it in our pregame show on Senior Day when you were talking about the seniors, that you kind of your hunch that maybe, Marcus is in his 4th year of college hoops, that it could be that he decides also to move on, whether, pursue basketball at a professional level after this year.
I mean, I would assume he would. I think there's every coach is dealing with a million unknowns about their roster because every kid is sitting there waiting about that one-time transfer rule. They are. I mean, it's going to be a drastic change. Marcus, like you said, has been in college for 4 years. I do think he's looking forward to his professional career. He needs to go through the process like anybody else should, but it's a unique process because of the coronavirus. Hopefully it gets a little bit better than what Daniel went through, but if we can go 3 years in a row of players that have gone to the NBA, that's a great accomplishment. We've had back-to-back years of players leaving early to go to the NBA from Minnesota, mind you. So Marcus is not from Minnesota, but we still want him to make the NBA as well. So if that's possible, we would support him 100%. I think everybody's going to have to make decisions. Oh, do they want the year back? I mean, like every player gets a pass. They have to decide what they want to do and kind of figure that out. So it's going to be a lot of decisions for a lot of kids throughout the country this year.
All right, very good. Let's take the break here. We'll come back. Justin Gaard will have his long contested 2 with the head coach Richard Pitino. Time for us as well to remind you it's a 5:30 tip tomorrow. The Golden Gophers and the Wildcats from Indianapolis, Indiana, Lucas Oil Stadium. We'll ask about playing in a football stadium with the head coach when we come back as well. Sunbelt Business Advisors brings you Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino from Learfield, IMG College. Welcome back. It's Gopher Basketball Weekly with Golden Gopher head coach Richard Pitino, Mike Grimm, and Justin Gaard with you here as we lead into the Big Ten tournament. Minnesota and Northwestern coming up tomorrow night. 5:30 is the tip from Indianapolis. That's 5:30 Minnesota time. We'll take air at 5 o'clock. Here in the Twin Cities, we'll be on Twin Cities News Talk, 11:30 a.m. and 103, is it 0.5, Guardsy? 103.5 FM.
103.5 FM, yes, sir. And the iHeartRadio app. Wherever you are, no matter where you are in the world, hit the iHeartRadio app.
Yeah, I think if you're outside the Twin Cities, you need to.
That's right. Don't blame us. Don't blame us.
There's a like an invisible
geo-targeting.
Yeah, invisible fence, the dog fence, I like to call it. All right, well, enough of that. I think we've all waited long enough. It's time for the long contested 2 with Guardsy and Pitino.
Richard, the final minute of Iowa and Wisconsin on Sunday took 19 minutes and 10 seconds to play because there was like 9 replays in the game. I'm curious your opinion on, have we lost our mind on everything that's reviewable, how long it takes? We're about to hit, where all the eyeballs are going to be on college basketball. There's going to be some great games here, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And it seems like more often than not, college basketball or NBA, we're stopping for minutes at a time in the final couple of minutes. What's your opinion on all of that? Do you have a big opinion on all of that?
Yeah, I don't think it's good. I don't know if I have a big opinion on it. I mean, my opinion would be for the refs to get it right.
First time?
Yeah, which, by the way, they probably get it right a lot more than they get it wrong. I don't like the free timeout under 2 minutes when it's obviously Gold's ball and all of a sudden White's yelling, check the monitor. The checking of the monitor thing, it's taking too long.
Yep.
Every sport should evaluate how their game is right now because they need to get fans back. I've talked about going to hockey games and all of a sudden an intermission hits and I'm like 15 minutes and we got to do this twice. Like, this is absurd. Figure this out. This is too long. So I think the world has evolved drastically. I do think college basketball, because the games are somewhat short, can be very enticing. Now you have a lot more games. Obviously, football has the weekend, which is huge. But yes, I think they need to figure that out and get it right because it is taking too long.
Is there a way to shorten it up, whether it's you'd only have a few challenges or there's a time limit before you have to figure it out? Because sometimes for a ball deflected out of bounds, I mean, sometimes there's 14 fingers there all in the same area and nobody knows whose is what, right? So, I mean, have you given that any thought? Have you as coaches talked about that? I imagine it's going to come up here, in coaches meetings moving forward.
It probably would be beneficial to give everybody a challenge. I think the NBA does it right. And then you lose a timeout
yes.
to where you can't constantly go to the monitor. So you'd think twice about it. That's probably a good idea. And for whatever reason, college basketball is not lockstep with the NBA. They should be. It makes zero sense to me why, we're not working together to have a similar game, whether it's the shot clock, whether it's certain rules. I don't get why we're not together with them like other sports are. But yeah, maybe a challenge for the coach. And if you are wrong or whatever, then you lose a timeout. I think that'll stop the monitor certainly a lot.
Longtime fans of Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino will be familiar with your kid power rankings. We haven't done it in a very long time. I don't know if we've done it this year, maybe once or twice. I'm curious, as spring is hit now, if you have an updated Pitino household kid power rankings that you can share, and if anybody's moved up, anybody's moved down, or if things have stayed pretty stable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty stable right now. I think you go and, Zoe is your nicest, your sweetest, but she's also the highest maintenance one. Jack is just disgusting, needs to shower more often and clean up. I mean, he's just that little boy who's just a mess. Ava
rarely wears a shirt too, by the way, right?
Yeah.
He very rarely has a shirt on.
Should wear a shirt. and then Ava this morning, walking down the steps, she woke up and I'm walking up the steps to go get ready. And I said, "Hey, Ava, how you doing this morning?" She goes, "Not good." I said, "Why?" She goes, "I want a horse." And then just kept walking. So I was like, wow, a horse. Okay. So no, they're good. This is a bad time of year for kids because snow is melting. It's nice out, but it's a disgusting mess outside.
Terrible.
And they have no, they're not very considerate with that. So I've always said March and April are a lot more challenging around the Twin Cities than people think it is, because you think it's going to be nice, but it's still not quite there. And your kids are outside and your dog is making a mess, and it's a bit challenging.
It's so deceptive too. And you think I would have known. I mean, given that I'm one of us, I threw all mine out the other day and they came, the littlest 2-year-old came back in 40 seconds. She'd already fallen in a huge puddle and was just a disaster. Like, it's deceptive that it's so nice out. It's 60 degrees, but it's not, you shouldn't be outside with children.
My 4-year-old, Jack and I were shooting around yesterday. My 4-year-old, I looked around and she was dipping her hair in a puddle, like as if she was like washing her hair. I'm like, all right, this is, so yeah, no, it's a challenge right now, but they want to get outside. I mean, they've been holed up for months, but it's a dirty mess for sure.
What was it like having them at the game Sunday or Saturday?
Good.
I guess, at Rutgers.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it's not, obviously no fans. I don't think they understand all that part of it, but we haven't been able to get them to a lot because Ava's had a bunch of games and Jack's had a bunch of weekend games. And then obviously the evening 8:00 ones, we haven't gotten any babysitter just because of coronavirus, trying to, stay clear of that. So good to get them there, just because schedule works. So it was good.
Grimmer, anything you want to add on any of this? You've always got your opinions.
I've got all kinds of stuff to add on to some of your questions, Guardsy. So the review, the video review.
I knew you'd go back to the review.
First of all,
you just knew the officiating was going to trip you up. I knew that was going to get you more than anybody.
I agree with the head coach. Get the call right to start with, and we wouldn't have to review it as often. But that said, I'm not as down on the review as many. I do believe you get it right. Here's what I think: the review's design, the intent of the rule, the purpose of the rule is to correct egregious mistakes, just horrific mistakes that have been made, and easily overturn. So, like if it's a ball that's tipped off 14 different fingers, take 2 seconds. Can't tell. We called it, Minnesota ball. It's going to be Minnesota ball. I do this. I wouldn't put the challenge in the coach's hands. They have enough on their plate. They don't need to worry about when to challenge and when not. Like, I think the college football challenge rule is way better than the NFL. Like, Mike Zimmer has no business deciding when to challenge. Let the guys that are in charge of rules decide when to challenge. Buzz down, correct it, and move on. Mike Zimmer should be worrying about what defense to call when, Drew Brees is on the other side. But here's the deal in college hoops: 60 seconds. If a ref and if those 3 guys can't figure out in 60 seconds that something needs to be overturned, then it can't be so blatantly obvious that it's going to be the intent of the rule. The spirit of the law is overturning obvious stuff. If you can't figure it out in 60 seconds and it isn't obvious enough to overturn, move on. Don't stop the game with 9 minutes and 30 seconds left to say, oh, the shot clock didn't start, neither did the game clock, we got to add 4 seconds. Nobody cares at 9 minutes. I'd even say if it's 2 minutes, nobody cares. That you can figure that out. The shot clock is going to work that out.
I also don't like the why do you have to explain to both coaches?
Right.
It's Blues ball. That's right. It.
Yeah, just move
like,
on.
I'm going to speak to him and I'm going to speak to them. Like, what's there to talk about? Did the call or not? Like,
I wish they'd tell the radio guys on occasion, because we don't know what the heck's going on because they're on the opposite side. But the other thing, I agree with you on the timeouts. If you're going to review with 1:10 left, the 10 guys on the floor have to stay out there, huddle up by the, I mean, they'll get their own timeout, but they can't let Tom Izzo design a last second play on the chalkboard. Stay on the court. You don't get a free timeout while the refs review. So those are my things there. It speed it up a minute. If you can't figure it out in 60 seconds, then it's not an error big enough to overturn. And then these hook and holds and all this stuff, that's a whole nother issue. That was a safety issue, and the spirit of that law has kind of been swayed a little bit as well. Lastly, Ava wants a horse. Tell her to call Grandpa Rick. He's got plenty of horses, I think. Have her pick one out. out. She could even win some money on him.
Or lose some money.
Or lose some money on him. That would be my suggestion there. So those are my follow-ups on the long contested two.
I love it. And you can
All
invite
good
him to
stuff.
the off-season coaches meetings. It'd be good to bring Grimmer in. It sounds like he's got the plan ready to roll.
Well, the world would be a better place, Guardsy, if people would just.
If only people listen to you.
Thank you. All right, we'll take our final break. We'll come back. We'll have our final segment as we preview the Big Ten basketball tournament coming up in Indianapolis. Sunbelt Business Advisors brings you Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino from Learfield, IMG College. Welcome back to Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino. It's sponsored by Sunbelt Business Advisors as we lead into the Big Ten tournament. Mike Grimm and Justin Gaard along with the head coach. Gophers and Wildcats tomorrow night. 5:30 is the tip-off pregame show at 5 o'clock. From Indianapolis this year, it was supposed to be in Chicago. It got shifted to Indy. And now, Coach, also, we knew about this a while ago, but just to refresh people's memories, it will be at the football stadium, Lucas Oil Stadium. The women's Big Ten tournament is going to be taking place simultaneously with the men at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, where usually it is. So I know you've coached games. I remember the Gophers in Louisville when you were an assistant for your dad, played down in Phoenix in that game. And then obviously all the Final Fours have been in football stadiums. What is, what's the difference? Do you talk to your guys about that at all, or let them go in and see themselves?
I mean, I don't like it. It's not good, but no sense of complaining about it. I mean, it's obviously when you're trying to pull off these things in the middle of a pandemic, it's going to be very, very unique. The hard part is nobody's going to get shoot around times. So you got to you can't get in there. But everybody's going to deal with it. So, we can't shoot to begin with. Can you imagine how bad it's going to be if we haven't been in a place?
Well, I was wondering, what if it's like a bizarro Gopher world where all of a sudden you guys are dead eyes? I mean, and all of a sudden you're just knocking down threes at 50%.
Clearly everybody's used to playing with no environment, right? So the environments are not great, obviously. But this has been 5 months of it, we're all dealing with it now. So that I think we'll be okay with. I think everybody will be okay with. But the backdrops are really, really weird. So we just have to take advantage of the warm-up time that we get, which isn't much. But every team is dealing with that.
And 8,000 fans, are you eager just to have somebody there able to cheer and make some noise in the background, some semblance of atmosphere?
Yeah, but it's still not, it's 8,000 in a thing of, I don't know what the stadium holds. So I'm eager to get back to the normal world at some point, but it is, it's good that we can have somebody in there for sure. Our family and friends they made a decent home court environment versus Rutgers. They were trying, but yeah, I'm just eager to get back to that world for everybody because that's so unique.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Grimmer.
I was going to say, on the Wednesday night games, I don't know if there'll be 8,000 for those. I suppose as you get closer to the weekend, the 8,000 will be a factor. But go ahead, Guardsy. That was just an add-on comment. Sorry.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Northwestern as we wrap up. You played them a year ago in the Big Ten tournament. You just played them a couple of weeks ago. They've been on a little bit of a mini stretch run here. It seems like they've been playing better as of late. So what do you take from that game, a couple of games ago, and what's important tomorrow?
We sent them to the foul line way too much. We kept fouling, and they
were in the bonus early, were they not?
Yeah,
in the second
it
half?
hurt us, and they're actually towards the bottom of the league in getting to the free throw line, and we just kept sending them there. So that was really the game, and we were ice cold. I mean, we just could not hit a shot. So, and they're playing well. Give them credit. I mean, they're playing better. They beat us. They beat Maryland. They beat Nebraska. So they're going to have some confidence. The biggest thing with our guys is just getting them going, getting them believing, because when you have so many injuries, you got to get those guys that are healthy to believe. And there was a good fight versus Rutgers. So hopefully, that can, trickle over to tomorrow night.
I agree with the fight in Rutgers, and you mentioned it. That was a huge game for them. They celebrated pretty hard knowing what that game meant to beat you guys in overtime, because they'll probably be in the tournament now. But how do you keep that spirit or get that fight when you've lost 7 in a row and there is a pandemic and the season's winding down? Like, it's got to be a difficult thing to do. So I'm curious how you and the staff have tried to do that.
Well, the injuries is really what like we can't get any continuity in practice. You know, a lot of the times when you're not playing well, you're not winning, well, you get back to work. Like we can hardly play 4-on-4. You know, we were playing 3-on-3 yesterday. So that's really been the challenge, is you're just not getting a whole lot better. You know, and so you just talk to them about it and, you know, get them ready. I thought their spirit was good last game. It's a new season now. Like I said, I don't think Liam's going to play. I don't think Gabe's going to play. So, you know, the team that we have is the team that we have. Hopefully Brandon, a little bit more rest, and Booth, a little bit more rest, can get healthy, because that's the answer. It's spirit is important, but getting healthy is the answer. And you know, if we get healthy, we have a shot to beat anybody. We're healthy. We tied a school record for, you know, ranked wins.
Do you, from that standpoint, though, I mean, I get spirit. It's hard when things aren't going your way, that you get maybe this sense of new life too, when you show up, and it's kind of this second chance, so to speak, to, hey, let's make a run here. And from that standpoint, maybe inject a little, you know, more positivity into a situation that has maybe gone sideways.
Well, I think we've been pretty positive with them internally. You know, I think there's a reason why we're losing. And that's not to say that there's not things that we can't do better. There certainly is, but it's very, very clear the injuries hit and then we started losing. So I don't know if it's necessarily one person to blame, one player to blame. I mean, but yeah, I think we're excited about an opportunity to go play. You know, I mean, it's such a unique year. Now going to the conference tournament obviously is exciting. You know, so get that renewed spirit of, okay, throw the records out the window, single elimination. Let's go see if we can get a win.
If this is it for Marcus, as you guys mentioned earlier, you know, an interesting run here where you think you might get him eligible a few years ago. He ends up more or less having to play Carson Edwards in practice on the scout team, comes on the scene last year, has a good year, obviously has a good year this year as well. I mean, as you look back on coaching Marcus, you know, kind of the same thing I asked you about Eric and maybe even about Brandon, what should we remember about his run here?
Yeah, I mean, he's sets a single season record for assists last year. All conference player and maybe one of the toughest conferences in the history of college basketball. Heart, grit, fight, determination, confidence, a great belief in himself. Hasn't, you know, just keeps fighting. Has hit some huge shots. You know, he took that 3 versus Rutgers, and I don't think anyone doubted it was going in. The key is to get him better looks like that, you know, and I think it was Jamal grabbed it, drove it, kicked it. Like that's the key. You know, we can't make it so hard on him all the time. So he's a terrific point guard. You know, I mean, it's obviously season cut short last year, uniqueness with this year. But, you know, I hope he's a really good player for a long time. You know, like I said, I mean, if this program can turn out back-to-back NBA players, that's something to be proud of. So he'll have to evaluate that and see where he go. We want to be a part of it to help him, and we'll be rooting for him, whatever he does.
All right, well, very good. Safe travels to Indianapolis later today, and good luck in Game 1 tomorrow night.
All right, thank you.
All right, he is the head coach. Guardsy, we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Grimmer.
All right, very good. There it is. It's sponsored by Sunbelt Business Advisors. It's Gopher Basketball Weekly with Richard Pitino from Learfield, IMG College.